Yeah. What's up? Take two. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Alondra, and my internet service is not all that it's cracked up to be. So another day, another
Yeah.
day. So how has your week been, Michelle?
It's been all right. It's been pretty good. Just wrapping it up, enjoying, I guess, the weekend. You know,
Me
car
too.
problems.
I'm enjoying this long weekend. I get Juneteenth. Well, yeah, you got that car situation. Hopefully your AC gets fixed soon, and you have to worry about it because it is 100 degrees here in lovely Texas.
Yes. Both my ACs this week decided
Plus,
to put our house AC was messed up. They had to come fix that, and then literally the next day, my car AC broke. I was like, "Well, damn, we're just destined to be
oh
in
my
hell, I guess."
goodness.
I don't know.
Oh my goodness, it is insane out there. So my week's been okay, nothing crazy. Just I got Juneteenth off, which I'm very happy for that's now a federal holiday. And so I got a little bit of time to spend with my family and and that's it. I mean, really nothing much. So have you been keeping up with the hearings,
The
or are they
hearings.
over?
I haven't been keeping up with any hearings. The only hearings I kept up with was the Amber Johnny thing, and then of course all of the stuff that's been going on since with Amber and her interviews and stuff.
God.
So
That's a hot mess, though. I did a couple of videos on her responses and why is she even wasting people's time? And at this point, I mean, she just can't stop from talking. I think I did a video, and I don't know if we discussed this one, but I did a video on what I would do if I was Amber's PR team.
I saw that one. I think.
You know what? The funny thing is that I would have her, because right now her reputation is of a liar. Whether she
Yeah.
likes it or not, the perception is that she lied, right? And to be honest, you know, I mean, we all feel that she lied. I feel that she does, and I think the general public does. So at this point, she has to clean up her reputation somehow. And her interviews, or the interviews that she's doing, or the interview that she didn't really help her cause much. You know, it would be better for her to not say anything, or if when they do ask her, just say, "Hey, I spoke my truth. People didn't believe me. Oh well." And just kind of like say, "Hey, I said what I said," and that's it. But her trying to defend herself somehow, yeah. And and be honest, you know, yes, she lied, right? Like obviously based
Oh yeah.
on the facts
God,
in the
come on.
case, yeah, it appears that she lied. But the other thing, right, is, you know, in all reality, like if I were to be on Amber Heard's team and take her side, obviously I have absolutely no PR experience. Um, but if I were to be on her side, and if if I was in PR, let's pretend here. Let's pretend I'm in PR. If I was in PR and she was my client, I would play up the fact that she went up against a very powerful man. And that's it, you know, and then be like, she said her truth, people didn't believe her, she went up against a very powerful man, and that's it. But I wouldn't have her talk right away. I would have her go like maybe a year, right? Like I would have her do year, probably come back and say that she went to therapy, you know what I mean, like, I came
Yeah.
back from therapy, and
Go
have
away
her
for a while. Take a break.
go away for have her volunteer, and like on her Instagram post, I would have her like volunteer at several like organizations that deal with women and women's issues, and just have a very active role in that. And then after a year, come have an interview with somebody like a Gail King, who, you know, like, or Oprah or something like that. Have an interview, have her in her house with some horses and her family interacting with a little girl, you know, just like painting this picture. And when they ask her questions like, I wouldn't have her go on to these, because she started going off on it was about the First Amendment and going off on this crap that,
Yeah, it was
nobody
really weird.
believed. That was really weird. I would have just said, like, if they would ask me a question, but people believe you lied. And I would be like, well, they have a right to believe whatever they want. But I know this
Yeah.
is my truth. And that's it.
Hmm.
Right? Not even go into whether it was, or, it could, I mean, in all honesty, it could be her. You know what I mean? Like, it could be her, like, if she
Yeah,
believes,
she's
what she says, and then after that, then she'd be cleaned up. Like, look at Angelina Jolie, and I compare her to her, and granted, Angelina Jolie didn't lie, but look at what,
it's a little bit different. Yeah.
it's a little bit different, but you have to say that the reputation was tainted, right? Like, nobody likes a woman that goes in between a married couple. Like,
Yeah.
it's just thing. Regarding of the circumstances, they were married, they were in a relationship. I'll be honest with you, me and a couple of my friends, I didn't watch any of her movies for a while because I was all like, I'm not supporting that.
Oh, really?
Because
I
yeah,
didn't
I
even.
didn't watch her for a while.
Yeah.
It took me, I think it was after, like, it took me the twins to be born and her doing all that work for me to be like, all right, I just, I'll see what she's gonna say. I'll watch a movie with her. But even then, like, I will say this, and then it's just like woman to woman, right? A woman that gets involved with a married person, married husband,
Mhm.
um, something really doesn't sit right with me after that. Like, I can try, like, I can be your friend. I'll give you the respect that you deserve, right? Because everybody
Sure.
deserves respect. So I'm not going to judge you on that. But I'm judging, but I'm not judging. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna support. I'm gonna be friendly to you, courteous to you. I
But
may
your
even
trust
be your
levels has
friend.
dropped. Yeah.
Yes, because I'm like, what if she comes after, my man? Which you don't know. Like, I don't know. What if she comes after my man?
Right.
You, um, like, it's not like somebody you can bring home to, like, when you're dating someone, you have a girlfriend that you don't mind her being a third wheel because you trust her enough, right? And you
Mhm.
trust your man enough that you think, nothing's gonna happen there. Like, she wouldn't be my third wheel, if you know what I mean. Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't carry a girl that has a history of doing that. So, yeah. And granted, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how I got on Jenny Jolie, but what I did
Like
is that
like if you
basically
can't
she.
be sincere to him, how would you be sincere to me as a friend? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's been situations like that. I just really just I don't like it. And then even in my personal life, when a woman is with a man who has cheated, who's the man who was married and got involved in that relationship, like, it's if somebody that's like my friend, I mean, it still is like, dude, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why are you getting involved? And then it's not only that, especially when they have children together, like, cardinal rule, no, no. Like, why are you going to be taking away some kids? It's not their, like, livelihood, like their dad supporting them, and you're over here getting involved with somebody like that. Like, I don't know. And, in all honesty, as women, I think every woman has had the opportunity. That opportunity has opened up. I know for me it has, like, as far as hanging out. Like, let's just say when I was in college, I was, like, hanging out in college, right? And there was this guy who pursued me who happened to be married. And he was
Oh, okay.
pursuing me. Like, he didn't tell me and that's what I mean, the opportunity has opened up. Like,
Hmm.
there's a lot of women that have been pursued by married men. I'm sure that present company included, right? And at
Yeah.
that point, like, it's your decision to say, like, no. No matter how attractive that person is, it is your decision to say no. And let me tell you, he was like, it was back when we had Facebook. No, not Facebook.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't Facebook. It was back when we had, no,
MySpace.
ooh, no. Do you remember? It was during that. Oops, there it is. It was during that time that we had MySpace, and
Oh, okay,
he was
okay.
stalking me on MySpace. And finally, I had to tell him. I emailed him, you stop calling me, stop stalking me on my face. I'm gonna go and tell your wife. And then finally, he gets like, shut down. But I kind of felt bad for this girl that he dragged
Yeah,
across the country to go. He was in grad school to go to grad school, and she's at home taking care of her kids. They're one kid that's hers and one kid that he has from a previous relationship. And I was like, what the heck? What kind of mess is that? But yeah,
yeah,
that can get messy. So it took me a while to watch an Angelina Jolie movie because of that situation.
yeah.
I'm
I don't
glad.
know.
And
I
then
didn't really follow her that much. I liked her movies, Tomb Raider and stuff like that, and was it Salt and
I've never watched Salt. There's like and then I got to think about to this day I can't watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
really?
Yeah, it bugs the crap out of me. Because that's the moment I see them together, I'm like, man, you had a wife and you got involved. And it's not even her. You know what I mean? It's not even because it's him, right? In
But
reality,
how
in
many
all reality,
celebrities does that really happen to?
what?
Right? Like they go on a movie set, they act with somebody, they end up typically having some kind of fling with them or something like that, right? Like it's so common in Hollywood for celebrities to be on set with somebody else and then have some kind of fling even though they're with somebody else. Or like not necessarily fling, but actually cheating on their partner or some shit. Like it's so
Mm,
common
it is
for
very
Hollywood.
common. But I think it's for Hollywood, I think it's one of those things that you really have to be tied to your spouse at the hip. You know what I mean? Like the kind of spouse that's like hanging out at the movie, because typically two celebrities marry a celebrity marries another celebrity, right?
Yeah.
And then he's working and she's working and they somehow make it work. But let's be honest here. Let's look at the celebrities that have had the longest relationships, and it's always been one, like, it's like anything else. You always have to have two people that have one person has
Yeah.
to lead career wise and the other person has to have to step back. It's really difficult unless you're in two different careers to
I
have
don't know.
like him have his career and he have her have her career and have children together, right? And I think that's the critical piece of it, right?
I
um
think it happens a
at
lot
least in
more
my
than we think.
industry.
I think it happens a lot more than we think with a lot of people that we look at as like, oh, this person would never do that to their wife. I think there are some of those out there, right? Like, I don't want to drop names of some super, super celebs, but some of the ones that we think of as like, oh, they're just a great person for an image, right? Like, they're a great representative or hero for kids, stuff like that, who are in a lot of like maybe family friendly movies and things like that, right? I think that there are a lot more that we just don't hear about because both of the partners decide to keep it very quiet and still maintain their relationship so they keep that image that they have.
Kind of like Will Smith before Jada started opening her mouth.
Yeah. Some of these like
Yeah.
ideal perfect couples, there are
Yeah,
a
and
few
then you
other ones, but
realize, man,
I don't want to drop
it's not a
names,
person.
they're too big.
Yeah, that you think that maybe may have like some sort, allegedly have some sort of like relationships,
Affairs. Yeah.
um affairs. I can see that happening. I can see that happening because I think it happens to normal people as well, like like not
Yeah.
people that are in the media. Like I personally knew a couple that I knew both of them actually, and they had affairs on each other. Like she had an affair and he had an affair, and so I can see that like, and that happened, and they were like normal people, right? Like, I think if
Yeah.
people want to pursue that lifestyle, right, certainly they can do it, right? And it can be done at like all levels. Of course, the only reason that it seems so much prevalent in Hollywood is because their lives are under a microscope, so to speak. So they're constantly being filmed. They're constantly has pictures. If so and so went to dinner with somebody, like you would know that day. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
funny because
Yeah.
I think now, even now, I think people's privacy, not just celebrities' privacy, celebrities because they're public, but even people's privacy,
Yeah.
like,
So many TikTok celebrities, right? YouTube celebrities, like just normal people. I know there's this lawyer that I follow, and I think he lives in Canada. Um, but he said for the first time, like he was noticed on the street in his town by some people for being on TikTok. And he's like,
yeah,
it's kind of weird because he's like, I was just a normal guy, and it's weird to be noticed out in public.
yeah, for sure. People getting noticed out in public, but even like with cameras and everybody's got a camera, right? So like for a celebrity, everybody's now a paparazzi. And
Yeah,
for
that's true.
there's my nephew. Ah, and for
Go get in bed.
yeah, and for even for a normal person, right? If you wanted to have, like, you'd have to go out, like, okay, so I'm going down this weird rabbit hole, but stay with me here.
Let's go.
I used to have a friend whose boyfriend was such a cheat that and you know how the Metroplex is so big, right? So
Mhm.
technically he had like a girlfriend in Plano, a girlfriend here, and a girlfriend there. And
That's
he
what
caught
they
up
do. That's what they
exactly, and
do.
you can, but it was back. It was there was more, and you could be more anonymous back then because
Yeah,
if someone saw you out, they couldn't necessarily take a picture, right? I mean, it wasn't it I mean, they could, but they couldn't. It wasn't like a thing.
they got to get
People's
the
phones
flip
didn't
phone
have
out.
exactly. You have to get the flip phone out. It's the whole thing, and people's phones really didn't have
Pixelated.
cameras. Yeah, it was pixelated, it was grainy. So technically, if you saw somebody's boyfriend cheat on them, let's say in Plano, right? Let's say you did have a flip phone, and some of them had cameras and some of them didn't. He could always say it wasn't me,
Yeah,
right? And then you could be looking at the pixelated picture and you're like, it's not him. And then in your mind you'd be convinced because but now,
yeah.
heck, you have a whole
They
video.
got you in 4K.
They got you in 4K. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, he said, and then so the
But we
whole
can't catch a clear UFO to save our life.
exactly. But now you're right. So at that point, like you can't, like, the game totally changed. And the game, I think, changed for everybody, not just,
Yeah.
celebrities, right? Because now you know it in real time. Like, keep in mind, like, there was this one lady, I was following her on TikTok, and she was eating at a restaurant and she overheard a man with the daughter come in, and she was like, the other one, he was with his daughter and the other woman, right? And his wife was at home, and so he's talking
Oh,
aloud
yes, like
with
that.
the other woman, and this girl had some sort of TikTok following, said, "Hey, TikTok, I need your help. I saw this man at this restaurant with a little girl in this area. Can you let's find this man's wife and tell her what was going on." And she found her. And she found her.
That's crazy.
I'm telling you, the game has changed. That was not a thing. Like, back in the day, you could go do your mess. Not that I was doing any mess, because I've been faithful to my
Right.
boyfriends, but not
Yeah,
that I was
same.
doing it, and my husband. I did not that I was doing in the mess, but I knew people who did mess. And back in the day, you could be messy like that. But
Yeah.
now, lo and behold, TikTok detectives, you better not be going to a restaurant with some girl
You
with
need to
some kind
solve
of
a
TikTok
murder.
following.
You need someone to figure out who your partner's dating.
Well, you know those girls from that show, what is that podcast that I listened to? I can't remember the name of it. But there's a podcast, these two women that are like, everybody's walking around the podcast with these two women.
Creeping in the shadows.
And I know. It's like it's a ghost. It's a ghost. It's two podcasts with these two women on there, and everybody's
Oh, and they
everybody.
solve murders, like cold case
Yes,
murders.
and they solve
I've seen them.
murders. Yes, yes, and they solve murders, and so they've literally been solving these like murders.
What you got
The
going
whole
on back there?
house. She got her bag, and she's got. And they solve murders, and those murders have all been like, they've investigated, and these murders have been solved. So with that said, same, concept here, except now it's cheating. So there's a cheating side to TikTok where people can find out if their man's cheating. It's insane. It's insane. So
It's
yeah.
crazy.
So I think the whole dynamic has completely changed in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think I'm at the point now I'm okay with an arranged marriage. Like, you're gonna pay all my bills, you're gonna have all the money, you're gonna take care of everything, you're gonna give me money to invest. My money's my
And not
money,
worry
your
about
money's
them.
my money. One of those type of things.
I have a friend who married very well, and she's a stay-at-home, and she has like 2 degrees, 3, I think. She does, and they don't have any kids. She stays at home, but let me tell you something. Um, I was on this side of this video where I was hearing this girl say about if that even though her husband works full time and she stays there still. I agree when with taking care of the kids. I think that should be a joint, endeavor,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. There are definitely things they need to learn from both sides, for sure.
Exactly. But when you don't have any kids and you're a stay at home, I really do think that there's some certain level of responsibility that you need to take on, right? If the man's going to work full time. And I will tell you this,
Yeah.
this woman with 3 degrees cooks her husband, she has a garden, cooks him organic meals, um, you know, makes him some amazing meals and really takes care of him from domestication standpoint. I'm sure there's things that he has to do, because he can't not do anything. But at the same time, like, she does take a certain level of responsibility. So I feel that if you're going to be a stay at home, then you have to be in some ways domesticated, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, just let me put this out here, fellas, if you are interested.
finding the
I know how to
fellas.
cook. I know how to clean, but I prefer to have someone come clean for me. I already have that. So
Yeah, right? Just to have
I
somebody
have a
like,
garden. I know how to manage a family. I know how to do all that. And I will help you become a better you and coach you on your businesses. Like,
you're like, I'm the whole package.
I
Hello.
have some investment ideas in here if you need it.
For sure. For sure. For those
But
situations, I
you
guess
must
you have
have
to
an
be
estate.
somewhat domesticated.
You must
Oh
have
my
an
goodness,
estate.
for sure.
If you
For
want,
sure.
what
For
is,
sure.
and this is actually going to be a quote from Angelina Jolie. If you want an angel, then you must create heaven on earth.
That's true.
That's what she said. So if you want a woman that's going to be the angel that you're looking for, you got to create the heaven.
You have to like work, and I think that there's men that are willing to do that, right? That are willing to be
Yeah.
very generous with their significant
For
others.
for someone who's going to be loyal and
Exactly.
and do all the things. Yeah.
But not all men are that. Like, I was talking to another friend of mine. She told me, hey, not even if they have money, not all men are
Oh yeah,
generous
yeah.
like that. I
Well, I
mean,
heard
it's
this
some.
guy. He
Go ahead.
said that, and I think we've said this before too. Just because the person is high net worth doesn't mean they're high net value,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So just because they got lots of money doesn't mean they're valuable people.
yeah.
Oops, lost you.
You know, okay,
All right.
okay.
Yep. Let's go. You
You
were
hear
just
me?
thinking about what?
Okay. Oh yeah, no, I agree. Not everybody's generous. Just because somebody has a high net worth does not necessarily mean that they're going to be a generous spouse. And that is sometimes people sometimes don't realize it. They might get involved with somebody who's very wealthy, but he's not going to be generous with you. Or you could have somebody that may not be that wealthy, but is very generous with the person that they're with.
Yeah.
And it just depends what you want out of life. You know what? I was looking at those there's some dating coaches on TikTok, but I don't know if they're really like worth it. You know what I mean? Sometimes I always see like dating coaches or people that put you on like or they're supposed to set you up with certain people. Like I've always wondered how successful they are and who actually goes to like a real life matchmaker.
Oh, okay. That's what I was about to say. So, like a matchmaker, because I saw this online coach get, I wouldn't say ripped to pieces by this girl earlier on a video I saw, but I didn't necessarily agree with everything that she had to say because she was like, well, what background do you have? Like, what degree do you have to be able to do this? And he's like, well, I've done a lot of studying. I've sat down with psychologists and all this. And, people always want to be like, oh, what degrees do you have? And just because someone doesn't have a degree doesn't mean that they're not incredibly intelligent in that area that they're working with.
Yeah.
Right? Like you see a lot of self-made people, for instance, Elon Musk, right? Tony Robbins.
Hmm.
Like these are all
Yeah.
self-made people. They didn't get degrees anywhere. Um, they just learned the information and started using it, doing what they could with it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I 100% agree just because, but then a lot of those people have, how should I put it, a network, right? So is it really about having an education, but really about having exposure to that network? And I'm going to talk
both,
about,
for
yeah,
sure.
that Theranos, what was her name? The lady, was her name, how was it
Oh,
Elizabeth?
yeah. Oh, I
What is her
think her
name?
name was Elizabeth, but I know who you're talking about. She did the blood work Theranos thing. Yeah.
Theranos, like that lady, right? So here she is. She's a college dropout, but what she did have was networks that had proximity to wealth that were willing to invest in her bogus company, right? And then she was
Mhm.
also having an affair with somebody that was I don't know if he
Who's
was
that?
but one of the guys that was actually investing with her in that. And it ended up being a huge hoax because the technology wasn't there. But basically going to back to having that whole proximity, right?
Yeah.
Being able to talk, look a certain way, and have that proximity to wealth that she did. And she did have a proximity to that. And people are willing to invest their money in folks that they feel are going to be able to, pull through, right? Or
Mhm.
create that technology, even if they don't necessarily understand it. And I guess that's where the sales part of it goes in. She must have had like
Yeah.
amazing sales skills or just the gift of gab, right? Um,
Something, because she was she didn't blink very much. I mean, some of your skills is basically like getting rapport with the person that you're talking to and stuff. And I don't know, she was just very dry, very eyes open all the way, all the time, weird voice. Like,
well, she
not that
faked
my
it,
voice
right?
isn't weird, but yeah,
But she faked all of it, and she faked all of it because she was emulating somebody like Steve Jobs, the way she dressed, the way what she talked, what she wore, like everything was, it was okay for her to be a little quirky and a little bit weird because people in technology, we think of them as quirky and a little weird, right?
yeah,
So of course that I
yeah.
mean that she played into that. I don't think that she would have gotten necessarily that kind of money if she would have kept her like bubbly blonde persona, right?
Oh yeah, they just thought
So
she was stupid for sure.
yeah, and but in reality she knew nothing. Like she knew nothing. She just, I mean, in all honesty,
She had sales skills.
Yeah, something. She had something going on, but then she had that proximity, again, proximity to wealth, right? And I think that's where a lot of, if you have that proximity, then you have the opportunity to go into these business and kind of these investments and be able to invest early on, you know,
Yeah.
and have the money to do it. Because even if these opportunities opened up for people, if you don't have the money to invest, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So, yeah, that was always kind of like really interesting. But back to the whole date, like I've always wondered how those, and I asked because I was on a live with one of those dating ladies, and I was like, how, okay, let's just say a man, they have to find a pool of women that they need to find this man to date. Like, how do you get into that pool of women for this man that's completely busy or lacks some or wants a genuine relationship? Like, how do you get in that pool of women that go on these like matchmaker dates? I have absolutely no idea. And I guess you can. So I text her, and she never answered my question. She didn't say how she scouted them. I mean, I don't
You
know how they
sign up on
scouted.
some of them.
You do. You do have to sign up on some of them, and hopefully you're that person's type. I mean, who knows? It that is so weird to me, because I will say this, that you can see somebody in a picture and see like, oh, they're beautiful, they're gorgeous, but then when you see them in real life, they're not what they look like, or the picture was just taken with amazing lighting and amazing angles.
I don't know. For ones like that, I think they would probably have to meet with you
Yeah.
and like video conference with you and stuff like that. I would imagine too that you have to make like some kind of video, like saying who you are, what you're looking for. You remember like those 80s videos, the dating videos?
Yeah, remember that. It's ridiculous. I remember those crazy like
So
80s dating videos. So I was wondering, but she didn't answer my question. I was like, ah. And part of me is, are they running a business, right? So I mean, part of me is like, are they really invested? I guess a really good one would be really invested in feeding her client what they wanted.
well,
But
yeah,
then
you're
you
gonna
can
get
also
some
be
more
like a
clients.
shady, yeah, or a shady person who's like, I'm just gonna, because most of the time I think, and I was actually thinking of investing in a matchmaker at some point just to see what that would be like. But then it's like, what if you invest some, it's thousands of dollars, right? To
Yeah,
get with
and you
somebody,
meet somebody
yeah.
you end up getting divorced from. That's a fucking
Or
it's a
even,
waste of money.
not meeting anybody, right? Like them having you go on several dates and it's like, not a match, not a match, not a match.
Yeah,
So there's also that issue with doing on there. But I always find that kind of interesting on that whole like what it
yeah.
would be like to have like a coach.
Well,
Like
coach is different than a matchmaker.
well, they do the date. It's like dating coaching, and then they're matchmaking you. So they coach you on certain things. Okay, they coach you on certain things, and then they coach you. So they coach you on certain things, and then they match you up.
Oh, okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's why
Yeah, I
it's
don't
so
know.
expensive.
I think you should just
Well,
put yourself in proximity of the type of person that you want and, you know,
but
meet
yeah,
them
that's
that
true.
way.
But how do you do that though? Like what kind of proximity, to people? Like, I mean, I don't know.
Well, so I mean, we've kind of talked about this before, right? Like,
Yeah,
if
we have.
you are looking for a wealthy man, where's a wealthy man going to be hanging out? Like, what are his, um, when he's not at work, what's he doing? Is he going to charity events? Put yourself at a charity event. I mean, you can go to most charity events for pretty cheap. You just
Hmm.
pay like the base price or whatever. Um, where, is he at the gym? Which the gym is, I mean, after you go there for a while, then people might start coming up to you that see you there all the time. If somebody's like a guy or whatever is interested, like, oh, they start working out closer to you when you're there,
Hmm.
stuff like
Oh, you
that.
would know. Yeah, the
I've
gym.
noticed this dude lately doing that when I'm at the gym, and I'm like, he's not bad looking. He's a good looking dude. So, but Yeah, I mean, just putting yourself in those places, asking yourself, like, are there any memberships, right? That certain resort clubs, stuff like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just, putting yourself in those type of places. Like Tony Robbins, for instance, has the, what is it, the Lions Club. So it's like their top member, like you pay a membership to basically get in with the group, and you take 4 trips a year and stuff with these people. They become very close to you. You become friends with them. There's single people, there's married people. Um, and you get to know all of them, So things like that. You don't have to do that one. That one's very, very pricey, but I think
Oh,
like
I'm sure. That's not like
75
that's
grand a year.
yeah. Whoa. Yeah, that's not anybody. That's like you got to have 75,000 of
Right.
discretionary
It is
income.
right. And it's putting you in proximity of people who are going to increase your net worth, right? You start
Yeah, I
making
would think.
connections with these people. And I
Yeah,
mean, you look you look at it like, oh, okay, 75,000 a year. Some people who may not necessarily have the cash know that the payoff's going to be worth it from who they're going to meet, the connections they're going to get, and they'll put that shit on credit because they
yeah.
know over this next year, due to the connections that they're getting, they're going to get so many opportunities that 75K is a drop in the bucket.
There's, I guess, because you're going to be doing business. Like if you have a small business, right? Then that may be something that you may want to be in proximity to those folks to say, okay, how do I do this, or how do I get that information? How do I deal with supply chain issues? You know, who are your vendors? Who are your vendors that are making these products for you? So like all of that information, and then getting you the connections, right? Like the contact people that you need to reach out to. So I can totally see that happening for somebody who has a small business to have that proximity to wealth. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Or I mean, if
interesting
right, like if you like art and you want to meet a guy who's into art, maybe go to museums,
for sure.
go to events that are held at museums, stuff like that. So it's more of like a mingle type of thing than a just walk around and look at art type of thing. Um,
For sure.
yeah, proximity to where, you know, what kind of car does that person drive? How can you put yourself into areas where that kind of car is going to be around? Um, Boat races, stuff like that. Things that would cost that type of money, right?
Yeah, be like money to do for
Yeah.
sure. I always found that interesting. The whole proximity to like wealth and trying to get in those social circles. I just feel that I would feel really awkward in those social circles because I feel like I'm a little weird.
Yeah. Well, that's where like creating an identity too comes in handy because, if you want to find a person, are you the person you need to be for that person?
Yeah.
Right? Like we have this idea of who it is that we want, but are we really the person that they would want?
You've seen something very interesting, and I want to talk about that. So Amber Heard studied Johnny Depp
Yeah.
before, yeah. So she was so fascinating. She used to listen to this obscure jazz that I used to listen to. Well, of course, she wasn't listening to that obscure jazz. She wasn't
Yeah.
listening to that. She knew that you liked obscure jazz and looked it up. She knew
I
you were into wine.
Yeah, somebody said that when she was a young girl, she had pictures of Johnny Depp all over her wall, I guess, as a teen, and basically stated that she wanted him. And I think it was like one of her parents said that she's so dedicated that whatever she says she wants, she's going to go out and get. And as a teen, she was in love with Johnny Depp.
Oh, I'm sure. And so she went out and did whatever she needed to do to get there, which, look,
Do you, boo? But don't fuck it
not
up.
everybody's going to go, yeah, don't, yeah, a friend of mine said that people who really love money have money. Like, you have to really love it in order to have it. And some people don't love it that much, right?
Yeah, some people chase it.
Chase it and then um but back to studying people. So I remember a long time ago, I was really into serial killers, and there was this one lady. She wasn't a serial. Well, she killed a couple people, a couple of her husbands. Can't remember what the name of her was.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, she did. She killed a couple of her husbands, but the last one she killed was a very wealthy man. And his family was all like, no, she didn't. But one thing, and this was back in the 80s, she would go to the library and then she would study these men. It reminded me kind of not, kind of the same um, mentality of becoming the person where you're talking about the persona,
Mhm.
what type of man that you want. So she would go to the library, and she wasn't a beautiful woman. Like, she was attractive enough, petite, thin, did her hair a certain way, dressed like dressed a part of
Yeah.
what she wanted to be. And she went out and she pursued these men, and she ended up marrying this very wealthy man. Of course, she ended up trying to get rid of him, and she did. Now she's in jail. But what I'm
Defeated the
saying is,
purpose.
but the whole thing is studying the person that the type of, she figured out how to eat, how to dress, like what to wear, what flattered her body, what this, what that, all of these things. And then she started going to places where these men were. Now, keep in
Yeah.
mind, these men weren't always tens, right? They weren't like,
Right. Right.
yeah, they weren't like these, because I think women have this mentality, and I can say I include myself in that too, that you want
Sure.
tall, dark, and handsome and wealthy, and it's not in that order, right?
Yeah.
It's really wealthy and maybe not so tall, maybe not so dark, and maybe not so handsome. And if he is handsome, he may not be that wealthy. So it's all a balance. Like, what do you want out of life, right?
Yeah.
So he wasn't the best looking man in the world, right? He was regular guy, tall, slightly overweight, but he seemed like a nice man, treated well. We're very generous with her and her family. But back to that is like, it's these men aren't all gonna look, they're not gonna be like
Yeah.
these gorgeous men, So back to
Yeah. Large
studying, like,
majority of the time, it's not. It's going to be a normal looking
yeah,
guy.
yeah, just an average looking guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. One of the things I did admire about Sex and the City, um, is that the men that they had in there were regular men. Like, Big was probably the best looking guy there, and maybe
Yeah.
like
And he
Ian
was normal
carries.
looking. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were like the men that they dated on that show, right, when it was on, were these like very normal looking men. They were regular
Yeah.
guys. So in reality, that's how it is. Like, nobody even, I love Johnny Depp, but Johnny Depp is pushing 60. And that's the
Yeah. It's
reality
like
of it,
50.
right? He
Yeah.
is pushing 60. Does he look good for his age?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But he's not Johnny 21 Jump Street Johnny Depp, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So, you know, it's an
Most
exchange, right?
men who
Like,
have that kind of money, it took time to get it. So they're
oh,
not
for
going to
sure.
be spring chickens necessarily. Yeah.
No, no, no. But I mean, but you're really looking for, but again, to your point, creating that persona of who you want to be, right? When you're around these people, do you want to be like, how do you dress? How do you present yourself?
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
it
And
is
that,
very interesting.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And not all of them are gonna like, you know, because you have this thing that they're all gonna like these tall, blonde, model-esque women, and that's also not necessarily the case.
Right. Yeah.
I remember when I was, well, I'm single now, but before I was married, right? Um, that this guy once told me, he's all like, "Don't you think that all these men are going to want tall, blonde, thin women. And I remember looking at him and I was like, no, they do not. You don't know what people like.
Yeah.
You do not know what people like. Everybody likes something different. Like sometimes I have been in situations myself and where I know that this person's I was all let me say I've always found I've been in situations where somebody's wanted to date me and they're in a relationship with somebody else, right? And I know this. And sometimes the women that they were in a relationship with were very beautiful women that I'm like, first of all,
Yeah.
no, right? Because I'm not that type of woman, one.
Yeah.
But second, it always was weird to me that you have this person that is what you would consider American ideal, right? Tall, thin, blonde, which I am clearly not, right? To pursue something that's totally different. And that always seemed I knew that at a young age, right? So I knew that sometimes things aren't what they appear, and some men that don't have access to or don't have the privilege or whatever you want to talk about it. It's not a privilege, but women like that wouldn't pursue them, automatically assume that because you don't look like that, that they're not people are, you're not going to get pursued. I
Yeah.
always thought that was funny.
Well, it comes back to needs too,
Hmm.
right? Like, if the needs aren't being met in the relationship, like, okay, yeah, the attractiveness need could be being met, but the connection need or the romance need or the maybe things are too plain and bland and the same all the time, right? So the spice is missing, which is what you find in a lot of relationships is that they've been with them for so long that they know how the relationship's going to go and it's just very boring and there's no spice to it anymore. And so they cheat with something that's exciting, right? Makes them feel excited again.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
it may not
yeah,
necessarily be, a 5'9", 115-pound model. You know what I mean? It may just be just a regular girl down the street. You know what's funny? A
especially if
friend of
that's
mine
what their
used to work.
partner is too.
Exactly. Exactly. Especially if that's what their partner is. They're like, why am I, I just want somebody to. And I think that
Something
people's needs
different.
change with age. You
Sure.
know, what you might have said, okay, I did, the right thing, right? As a man or a woman, right? You met the person that you were supposed to meet. It met the standards everybody expected you to date. You had children with them and you have a family, but they were never the person that fulfilled you completely or that you were
Yeah.
100%. I think that relationships are a lot about luck, as much as you were finding somebody attractive, but also about being fortunate enough to meet someone that you're going to grow with together and grow in the same direction.
Hmm.
And that is fairly rare in my opinion.
Yeah.
Fairly
Same.
rare.
I think some
And
some people get to where they feel that they're fine and they lose the growth aspect, right? Because growth is also a need. And
yeah,
if your relationship's not growing together and one person is stagnated and they're
yeah,
happy with where they are, you know?
for sure. And I think that also happens and why some people decide to pursue something that's other, right,
Yeah.
than what they're dating or what they've dated in the past. So that concept has always been very interesting to me. But yeah, your needs change as you grow older, and maybe something that would have excited you when you were younger is no longer an issue now.
Hmm.
So you just
Yep.
somebody that you don't necessarily want to date now. So yeah, I always thought that was crazy. But in all honesty, when I was talking about that guy, he was like, what makes you think? And I was like, you don't know what people want. You don't know what people date. You don't know what sort of connection people have. And I was watching once this Oprah interview with a person who deals with people who cheat and said it it's not always. Well, I'm going to step back a little bit. So there was this trend on TikTok where they had these these girls that had my mom, they had a picture of their mom and then the woman that their dad left their mom for, right? Or the relationship ended, or their stepmom. I don't know if you saw that. There was like a comparison.
I haven't
And
seen
I
it.
thought it was interesting that sometimes the stepmom wasn't as pretty as the mom, right? And that goes back to that whole Oprah interview where they interviewed that person who was like a dating coach, and they said a lot of times when a person leaves a relationship, it's not necessarily because it's not that person is not necessarily as attractive
Right. Yeah.
as that's a mistake. People think that they just because they're gonna meet somebody that's although I will say that what I've noticed that celebrity men or men that have money typically tend to date women that are a lot younger than they are, like
Yeah.
by like 20 years. I mean, just like insane amount of years. But then in my opinion, does it even matter to them? Like at this point, okay, I'm with someone, but does it even matter, like the whole connection piece? Like
I think
are
in
you really
some areas
connecting?
it's kind of weird. I think in some areas it's kind of weird, right? Like if you're in your 50s and you're dating a 19-year-old, that's kind of weird.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is.
Like
If you're
they're younger than your grandkids almost. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, not maybe grandkids. Grandkids are probably close.
yeah, I think that is kind of I think that's kind of weird. Like when you
Yeah.
have somebody where there's like a 20 or 30-year age difference. I, okay, I'll take
I
that
think
back.
if they're young, yes. But like if
If
you're
they're young,
30 and the other person is 70, like that's
no,
fine.
that's not.
Right? Like you're
That's
both
fine.
completely grown people.
Exactly. No, no, no. I get. But when I agree. If you're 19 and you're dating somebody who's 50, then I do kind of see it like, maybe not a good
Yeah.
look for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. 'Cause they're literally barely legal and you've lived so much life. Like that person is so young and naive that sometimes the girls really know what they're doing, but most of the time those girls don't know what they're doing. And later in life they're like, dang, you know?
Because they just see in their 20s, they just see a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So they see
Well,
a lifestyle with somebody that's going to be able to give me what I want and have me live the way I want to live.
yeah. Or we look at certain situations too, like we've seen recently, right? With the girl made a choice to do something or be with somebody that was very sketchy, right? And then later down the line, they say, I was groomed. I was groomed. But I think, and not to victim blame, because I had my fair share of stuff that was stupid as fuck I shouldn't have done as a teen that put myself in certain situations. So this is not victim blaming at all. You have to own responsibility for certain things in your life that you put yourself into. There are certain situations where you don't put yourself in situations that turn out to be not very good. But when you intentionally have put yourself in a certain situation that you know that you were dumb for making the choice, but you still made it, right? Like, for instance, when I was 14, dating a 34-year-old because I was too big and too bad and nobody could tell me nothing, you know, like looking back at it now, I made that choice. I thought I was cool. It was blah, blah, blah. But he knew better.
He knew better. You were a
I
child.
kind
He
of
was
knew
an adult.
better. I, I mentally knew better, right? Like I mentally knew that someone my age was not supposed to because it was not good. It was illegal. But I made that choice because like I said, I was too big and too cool and nobody could tell me nothing. Um, and there were multiple situations that I had put myself in, like for instance with my kid's father, right? Like I put myself in that situation. He was with a girl who he said they were split up but they were still living together. He was abusive to her. Why would I think he would not be abusive to me? But I didn't. Oh, he loves me too much, he'll never do that. Stupid, he did. But I had to learn the hard way, but I had to take my own responsibility for that. I put myself in that situation. right? And so if we want our life to change, you are responsible for every single thing in your life that happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
True.
Pretty much. There are very,
True.
very few things. So you got to take responsibility for all the things in your life. Could you have made a different choice today? Could you have made a better choice? Could you have made a choice in the direction that you are really wanting to go? Did everything that you did today really support the life that you want to have, the person that you want to be? Right. And when we all start taking responsibility for all the things, even the shitty things that have happened to us that we want to look back on, right, of the terrible situations and be like, oh, this person did this to me, they took advantage of me, but we had a choice in that matter, right? Like we still have to take responsibility for those things. And I think looking with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, we're not seeing any sense of responsibility at all for this relationship and what happened in it. Like at all.
No, not
And
at
then
all.
a lot of it's being intentional of like her being so young and the stuff that we're
She
seeing
wasn't
with
that young.
Manson where girls are talking about all the stuff that's going on with Manson. Now Manson, I can look at Manson and be like, I don't know, I just feel something's not right there. Yeah, if I'm looking to date someone, I don't look at him and go, oh yeah, he's the poster child for helping people. I just don't see that.
For
Which is
Marilyn Manson?
yeah, right.
Oh,
So
those girls that got into the relationship with him.
well, the one that's trying to
Oh.
sue him, that's friends with Amber Heard right now, or whatever. The one that said she was groomed and these things happened. But looking at Manson and looking at some of his relationships, like the what's her name?
Vida Bontes.
Yeah, Von Teese, and then his ex-wife coming out and saying like, "Hey, our relationship wasn't, it was what it was. We were consenting adults. It wasn't like this person's explaining." Um, and I know I might get dragged for saying this, but the girl that is having the whole thing with him right now, I forget her name, but she was talking about being groomed and that all these things happened. And if they did, it is tragic. But she had also talked about all of the things that Brian was doing that was good. Because I guess Brian is his regular name, right? And I'm sorry, but I don't look at him and his songs and how he's handled himself and just all around, right? And go, Manson is probably a really awesome guy who loves children. And you know what I'm saying? That's not.
Yeah, it's
So
not
to
his
sit there
persona.
and sit there and say like, oh, Brian was, I felt doing all these good things and I was manipulated into this. I don't know.
I
That whole
think
situation
there's
seems like it was that type of relationship with him,
I
like,
think I think with a lot of these young women dating these celebrities, right? I mean, there's a hunger there, right? You grow up seeing these celebrities, and even if it's just any celebrity that can get you into that party or get you has the connections, knows
yeah,
people, is friends with so and you're associated with them because when you're so young, that's what you want people to admire you, you want people to look at you. Um and it's not as you get older, I guess you care less. And I think that's what it is. I mean, part of it is that they're so young that they kind of get distracted by the whole celebrity. And so they're really in love with the persona, they're in love with the lifestyle, not necessarily like the person. And then when they
yeah,
realize that all these things were done to them that they were not necessarily okay with, but they were just in it for the ride, they come back and say, okay, now I'm older and what he did was wrong.
right,
Or what he
right.
shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have allowed that person to say. But at the end of the day, when you're 18, even though you're a very, very, very young woman,
And naive and stupid. And this is how you get wise in
and
life. You do stupid
that
shit,
exactly, you do,
but you can't
you
look
do,
back on the stupid shit decisions that you made and say, oh, fuck, I don't like it now. And it's his fault.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
That's yeah, exactly. You can't go around and say it's that person's fault. At the end of the day, you made certain decisions that you shouldn't have made. And granted, to your point, you're 18, you're 19, you're stupid, and you're making all these bad decisions, and that's how you learn. But you can't go on and say, okay, well, it's his fault. Like, you know, it's his fault.
Yeah, because at most 18, 19-year-olds, we all try to act like we've got life figured out. Nobody can tell us anything, but we're making our own decisions because we want to do it or whatever, and yeah, I don't know. I say let's hear the case on it. That
Let's
that
hear
would
the case.
definitely be
Yeah.
a case I would want to hear, because I don't know. I've been in relationships that were very darkly weird like that, and it was a decision that I made to be in that type of relationship. So looking back on anything that happened in that point of aggression or BDSM or uh like fantasy graping stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Ooh.
yeah, that's why I said graping.
Yeah.
Like looking back on stuff like that, where it is stuff like that because you are dark and you are damaged and you've got other stuff going on, and you're, I don't want to use the word manipulated by the older man, but intrigued by the older man and the darkness that comes along with it, and I don't
And
know.
I'm
I
curious
say
to see
let's
what
hear the
that
case, because
yeah.
he's got receipts supposedly, and she's got receipts too. So we'll see who.
And I agree. And I think it's so important for young women to know what those limitations are for you, right? Like what's no.
Yeah,
Is what am I comfortable with doing with my partner and what I'm not comfortable doing with my partner. And if you're not comfortable doing anything with your partner, the answer is no, I'm not comfortable doing that with
yeah,
you. And and I'm sure that in a girl's mind, well, if I'm not comfortable, you're not here to please a man so he can stay with you, right?
yeah. Well, in a situation like that, I can definitely see where saying no might be scary,
Yeah,
because you don't
yeah.
know. Like, if they're already that dark and they're already doing that type of stuff, if you say no, what will really happen? So I can definitely see that it would be scary to say no, and that you were put into a situation where you were scared to say no, essentially, but also made that choice to be in that type of relationship,
Oh, yeah. Well,
which
so if you're
is
scared of your
not a good
partner,
situation, right?
if you're scared, if you're scared of of saying no to your partner, that's not a relationship you need to be in.
Yeah,
Like, be intimate with. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well,
if you're that afraid, yeah.
if you've ever been in a relationship prior to that one, even that was remotely aggressive or like abusive, you fear saying no to anybody later too, because you never know what's going to cause them to snap.
Ugh,
And yeah,
I'm curious to see how this all turns out because I haven't I've heard very minimal. I know that he's had a reputation of abusing women, like allegedly, right? Allegedly
right.
abusing
But
women.
it was it consensual going into it, and then the other
Oh my
person was like,
goodness.
oh shit, this is way more than I thought it was going to be, you know.
Yeah, I think when you're going to get into relationships that are that intense, it's almost like you have to discuss what you're willing to do, where you're willing to go and where you're not willing to go. And and I mean, at this point we'll
Yeah,
see
it's a
what
very
happens with
sticky
that case.
situation,
It is,
because
and it's scary.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely a weird life to try to lead, and be also famous and have money, and not expect someone to come back who maybe regretted their decisions later, or the situation did get hairy from what they had originally consented to and it just got way out of hand. you know, yeah, it's
That is scary. I don't know if yeah, that is very scary. And there's people that are into that sort of stuff. And which to
yeah,
me is I don't know. I mean, I guess it's fine if you're both comfortable with it, but to your point, the moment somebody's uncomfortable with it, they need to speak up. But sometimes they're so young, right, that they're like,
right. They're
should I?
scared.
They're scared, or they're like so young as if I don't do this, he won't stay with me, and I won't have access to all these people that I have access to. What do
Yeah.
you think about that one guy? What's his name? Ah, I see his face. That they're saying there's like this, the mom and the dad are coming out and saying that he manipulated their daughter, or is manipulating their daughter. He's an
Oh, I
actor. I
don't know.
can't remember what his name is. Never. He dated Zoe Kravitz, but I don't know if he's like a really, really famous actor. I'm to the point where I don't know the newer actors anymore, right? I
Yeah, I
have
have no
absolutely no
idea.
clue. I mean, I don't know who's new and who's not. I have no clue. But yeah, going back to that, you have to figure out what you're comfortable with. You can't just not. If you're not comfortable with something, don't do it and move on. And if that person doesn't like that, well, oh well, right? What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Well, you're definitely gonna have to distance yourself in that type of
Yeah, for
situation for
some.
sure. Yeah. I want to hear the case because especially, it'll be a shame. Evan Rachel Wood's her name, the girl
Yeah.
that's going through the thing with Manson. It would be a shame because she's such good friends with Amber. Is that Amber, for one, Amber has ruined it for her a lot. It's making it a lot difficult for Evan Rachel Wood because of what Amber did and came out and lied so hard about what happened between her and Johnny, right? Like she could have came out and said he was, I think it would have been more believable if she would have said like he was verbally abusive or something to her because she just didn't have the pictures to back up the amount of abuse that she said was happening. Like the pictures just don't match. And so I think if
But
she
I
would have just
Go
made
ahead.
it more about like verbal abuse, she may have had a better case. But she just got up there and her story just doesn't match the evidence at all. But it would be a shame if Amber took parts of Evan Rachel Wood's story and used it as her own.
So
Because
so
when
I
people hear that case and it matches, they're gonna be like, "Fuck this."
That's true. But here's the other thing. I think Manson will have a harder time just
Oh, for
because
sure.
his of his reputation. Like he is not, while Johnny's charming and
Right.
conventionally attractive and
And
the
he
kind
has
of guy
zero
that
other
yeah,
people who have said he's abused them. Yeah.
exactly, zero people who've said that. I think with Marilyn Manson you have
Excuse me.
not only her, but there's other allegations that I've heard. I
Right.
can't remember them off the top of my head, but I have heard that he
Well,
has
he
that
even wrote a
reputation.
book called A Long Road Out of Hell, right? Where he describes some very brutal things that Brian was doing, which is
Yeah.
his other self. So I mean, he's he's a very hurt person, right? And hurt people.
Gosh. Yeah, hurt people, you hurt people. I mean, you can't deny that. Yeah, I'm curious how that's all gonna end up. Um,
Yeah.
Settling down. Speaking of picking the wrong people, I did watch the finale of the Kardashians, and it's not that I'm like a huge fan. I think I watched 3 episodes, but I did watch the one where Chloe found out about Tristan. I just, these women, for all the money, right, and the power that they have, I don't know why they don't date people that are like not I'm gonna say normal because they're normal, but date men that are
Well, Kim's
emotionally
dating, what's his name, Pete,
Pete.
who's,
Oh,
I still don't feel like he's emotionally
he's
available either, though.
go ahead. He's 13 years younger than she is.
Oh, wow.
I think at this point, yeah, younger. I think she's just having fun because he's so
Fun and childlike. She hasn't had
fun and
that. Yeah.
childlike. Exactly. Fun and childlike, and we're doing this, and it makes her feel like a teenager again and young and all of this. But keep in mind, to your point, he's not available. Like, that's one piece of her that she was missing, but I can see how difficult a relationship with someone like Kanye would be because he was basically like, I don't know how many children they have, like 4 or 5, probably like a fifth
Yeah, I think they have 4.
4 or fifth child. Like, for example, like he wanted a certain band, like no, that she had something where she was talking about a band-aid and he wanted something. I feel like he he was very emotionally needy. However, on top of that, he was going
Oh,
through his
yeah.
mental breakdown. So she was having to deal with her children and having to deal and support her husband emotionally.
Yeah, it was
But
like
here's
taking
the
care of
thing,
another kid.
but then again, like, how should I put this
But
without
like on the other
sounding
end, because he was just doing things that were putting their family in a bad light and stuff like
yeah,
that.
but it was but how can't you
Very
treat
controlling
this?
almost too.
Yeah, but he was manic, right? He was going through these manic
Yeah.
episodes, right? Because of his mental illness. But how is when you're married to someone who's going through these manic episodes, that is a very difficult situation to be in, right?
Hmm.
And then having to
Yeah.
justify what he's saying because he's going through these episodes where he's like doing all these things,
Saying
shopping or
whatever.
doing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. But it's no different if he would have had an accident, would she have, you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, like, it's a disability, right? It's a form
Hmm.
of mental illness. So, I mean, would she have stayed in the relationship if he had like if he lost to me, that's when you tell if that's like really like legit, right? Like, are you gonna stay in it? And
Yeah.
I don't justify, like, there's some people who can't tolerate that. So I'm not gonna bash anybody who can't tolerate being in a relationship with someone. I remember my mom telling me a story about a person a man that she knew, that his wife lost her arm. Or it might have been the other way around. And he could tolerate the fact that she didn't have an arm. And that led to their divorce. So
Yeah.
I don't I don't want to drag her for leaving him because of him having to deal with mental illness, because I think having 4 children and then having to deal with somebody that's going through this, getting them to therapy, making sure that
Yeah.
they're taking the pills that they need to take, is gotta be very stressful. So I think she went the opposite end and decided to date somebody that's going to be no stress. But then again, she doesn't have the same commitment she does have that she had with a husband. A husband and a boyfriend are two different things, right? A husband, you have
Right.
to
Yeah.
deal with that, and if he, acts a little crazy, she can always get up and leave, right? Or does
Yeah.
something, and I don't mean like crazy in the
It's
sense of
not
mental,
so
but I'm just
connected
saying
to you. Yeah.
exactly. It's not, so if he does something out of the ordinary, let me use that word,
Right.
race crazy, out of the ordinary, or something that she doesn't like, she can always, you know, leave the situation,
Distant. Yeah.
distance herself. Um, but when somebody has like like for example Kanye, when you have a mental illness and he's going through this breakdown, she has to stay in that situation and help him through, and that is very exhausting.
Yeah, for
So I can
sure.
see why she said, hey, because you have two options. Either you wait it out till that person gets healthy, right? Or
That's
just
hard
decide
when
to
that
leave.
person doesn't want to take medicine because it's messing with their
Exactly.
genius. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's, sadly, that's something that comes along with people who are genius. And to discount that Kanye is not genius, or hold on, to discount that Kanye is genius, because he really is. Like, he's a very, very intelligent person. But that's what happens with people who are genius like that, is they're gonna be a little off in other places, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, it comes with it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, like
And
someone like Elon, same thing, right? Incredibly smart. I think with him, it's more about being able to retain information. Like, he can just retain information and utilize it.
mm,
But he's crazy. Like, he's completely crazy. You have to be crazy to think you're gonna start a rocket company and a electric car company and a solar grid company. Like, you got to be crazy.
and he's one of those guys that if he has to live in a tent to be where he needs to be, he'll live at a tent.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
doesn't need like those creature comforts, right? If I'm going to
right.
stay here, I'm going to stay in this little house, I'm going to stay here. He doesn't need those things. Yeah, I think for somebody to go through that so publicly, I think for Kim, she just kind of went the other way where Pete's easy. Well, of course he's going to be easy. He's a boyfriend. I go on vacation with you. I see you when I want. When I'm in a bad mood or I'm busy, I don't have to see you. I don't have an obligation to see you.
Yeah,
And you don't have an obligation to see me. Before I was married, people would always say boyfriend is totally different from a husband. And 100%, it's totally different. Because when you're it's a boyfriend, it's like, oh, you can always just leave the house. When it's a
yeah.
boyfriend, you
You
can
can
always just
escape the
leave. You can
problem.
always just say, hey, I'm gonna go to my house.
Yeah,
Yeah, but when you're in a relationship, you have to sit. You have an argument, and you're in the same house with that person. Unless you're Johnny Depp, you had a whole different like escape. Ah, gosh, here's the thing. When he said, I know what it's like to be in a relationship and not want to go home. So when he said that, I felt that. Like, I knew exactly what he was talking about with a relationship and not wanting to go home.
yeah,
That is the worst place to be. And you want to make your relationship work, and it's so when people go through the whole thing, because I'm sure when you have that many kids on a on Kim's end, that I
yeah.
get that has to be like a really tough decision. And you see her kid acting out, like in one of them, her little girl's like throwing the finger in all their Christmas pictures, and I can see why. Like,
Oh, North.
kids don't
Yeah,
kids oh kids. One of the things my brother said, and I think that it really kind of had me, it's like, kids don't care about your happiness. They don't. They care to an
yeah,
extent, they do, but they really care about, especially when they're young, like little, they care about being fed, being cared for, when mommy and daddy are together. They don't think that deep, like, well, if mommy's happy, we're all happy. You know what I mean?
yeah.
They're really about what they want.
Especially
And
if you're raised with that much money, right? Like,
yeah,
not just that much money, but all the stuff that you've done already by that age that most people have never done. Like, North is going to be a billionaire by the time she's 14,
yeah,
because of the companies and real estate that Kim has in her name.
yeah, yeah. She's gonna be a very wealthy little
Like,
girl.
of course she's acting out, like, look at their relationship, dad and mom, and it's, she wants attention, right? That's what she's seeking, is attention. She's not getting it at the level that's high enough for her with her parents. So she's
She
seeking that attention.
she wanted that attention from her mom, because she knew if she was going to throw that finger at those pictures, her mom was going to be
Yep.
upset.
Right. She was going to get a level 10 action. And you can give a level 10 action in a positive way or a negative way. And a positive way is going to be a lot more impactful, because you're going to get a lot more than just dopamine from that. You're going to get oxytocin and stuff too. But if they can get that level 10 reaction in a negative way because their need isn't being met high enough, that's what they're going to do.
And it's sad because you can see that a woman who has 4 kids and 4 little kids, normal women are spread thin. A woman with 4 kids is and a single mom is spread thin with
Girl, I
no
got three
help.
and I am spread. My mom's like a fourth one. I'm spread thin. I'm spread very thin.
Yeah, spread thin. It's completely different with her having all their help. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much help you have. Your kid doesn't want the attention from the help.
Yeah,
Your kid wants the attention from you.
right.
And I mean, I don't know. I don't, to your point, I would think that it would be very difficult to be a child of someone who's that uber famous
Yeah,
and
for sure.
puts priority on being in the limelight.
Yeah. Well, that's a
Honestly, if it
hard
was
one for
me,
sure. Because, I mean,
if
those kids, you don't know, right? Like, they've been having all that money and the lifestyle that they have. And if they don't have that, then that's also going to feel weird to them. But if Kim doesn't put herself in the limelight like she has it, they wouldn't have the lifestyle that they have. Like, I don't know. I think at this point, it's kind of become like a catch 22.
but you have to make that decision, right? Like, so here's the thing, because people always like say, I grew up with my mom at home and my dad working. We by no means, we probably would have had more if they both worked. By no means were wealthy, but we had a house and I knew that my mom was at home when she was at home. There are many, like all of my close girlfriends for the most part had us, at least I can name at least 2, had a stay-at-home mom. Traditional Mexican family, stay-at-home mom, traditional Latin family, stay-at-home mom.
Right.
We did not have the big house, the big things that all these other people have, but I knew that when I got home, my mom was going to be there. To them, it was a priority to have, with all their lack of knowledge and whatever, right? It was a priority for them to have somebody at home with the child as opposed to having us go to daycare or other things or having a bigger house, more things because my mom worked.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to say, first of all, at some point, how much money is enough money,
Hmm.
right? One. And then at some point, what's your priority, right? Is your priority having stable kids? And and is your priority your children or is your priority your career? And I hate to say it, but at some point at some point you have to make that decision. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm by no means like, I don't have any kids, so I'm not a parent, right? But I know that you have to make that decision,
Yeah.
right? I know that my parents made that decision for me. And I'm saying for somebody who has that much money, at some point you have to, what is more important? The well-being of, and the funny thing is that she just plays it off like, oh, she's throwing the finger in the Christmas pictures. Um,
Yeah. Well, I
it,
mean, it's not like they don't get attention at a level 10 in a good way because they get to do all kinds of fun stuff with their mom all the time,
yeah, for sure.
right?
Because
But
she's there.
maybe it's a phase, you know. Some
Maybe.
kids just go through that phase. I mean, I'm
I
way
just
different than I was in my teen years. And yeah, I mean, looking back now, I was a I was a total bitch to my mom. Like,
I just don't see growing up in front of a camera like that as normal. And granted, it's their normal,
I don't
but
know.
here's the thing, you don't have, when you're a child like that, you do whatever your parents want you to do, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, how do you keep their, you decided to be in front of the camera. Your children did not decide to be in front of the camera. At
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
point, where do you draw the line? I think Gary Vee said something very similar. Not, and he didn't speak about the Kardashians. He said something about people using their children is like almost like a social media prop.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think that they've done really good with that though, right? Like North didn't get on social media until recently, and it was only with Kim, right? So as far as actually being on social media, I think they've done. I
Ye-
mean, obviously the paparazzi and stuff, they haven't, you know, all the TV show and yeah,
but it's more of being in the public eye, right? Because that's,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
social media basically what puts you in the public eye. So you said there's people that use their kids to get into the public eye, right? So they're using their kid
yeah,
as a prop. Is that really healthy? Like sometimes a kid doesn't want to be on camera, and their justification is, when I always hear these folks say their justification is, well, they don't, if they don't want to do it, they won't do it. But at the end of the day, as a parent, right, you're
they want to
setting the
please the parents.
expectation that
Yeah,
that's what you want them to do. So now, even if the kid's annoyed with the camera being in their face, there's really nothing they
mm,
can do about it. So I don't know what if it would be like, because you have all these people with all these different personalities, and you can't tell me that there's not any of those kids that don't want to have a camera in their face.
right. Even
And you're
Courtney acts like she doesn't want any cameras. Like, Courtney hates
exactly
it. Yeah,
any cameras in her face, because you want to have some sort of privacy. And granted, all of the show's heavily edited, and they only show you what they wanted you to know, and a lot of
yeah,
it is like acting, but at the same time, there's some things that are, is it worth it? At some point you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to have all this money and power, right, in exchange for your anonymity and your privacy?
yeah,
And that's kind of like the big question, like what is that balance? And this is, and in the Kardashians, I think why people have such a love-hate relationship with them is because it
yeah,
almost
for sure.
seems like they have this whole thing where it's almost like they care more about money than anything else. And people like that tend to be pretty, for me, they're scary, right? People like that are scary, that
You know,
they're willing to do all of that in order for to live a certain lifestyle.
and I truly wonder if, and when I say the kids on this one, I don't mean Kim's kids, but I mean the kids as in Chloe, Kim, Courtney. I wonder, and what are the other girls' names? The model and
Kendall, Kylie.
yeah, Kendall and Kylie, right? I've heard multiple of them say that they would just be fine having this small, quiet life, of solitude basically and just doing their own thing. I think it was Kylie who was talking about she would just want to have a farm out in the woods and stuff like that. So I don't know. I wonder if Chris is really the one that has them working so hard, right? Like, yes, they do it. Yes, they like it, but at the same time, do they really? Or is it
Yeah.
because of Chris, double works hard, Chris works harder. But is it really come back to their mom being because she's their manager, right? Like,
Really pushing them to do those things. Like you can tell Kendall doesn't like it because she's hardly in any of these videos. She's like
mm,
barely in them,
yeah,
just little snippets. Yeah, like how much is their mom? Because I think their mom once said that she wanted to put them in a position where they didn't have to worry about money.
sure. And they're
And she
there.
definitely are, and they're there. So at this point, why continue with the show and why continue to push? And I think right now we're living in a real weird time where, like, all of these actresses and actors and all of these new celebrities coming out, they're all nepotism kids. Like their kids are all like, they're all somebody's child, right?
Right.
So now with this, now you have like a whole slew of other Kardashians that are all women, all young, very little, and at some point, like, are they going to be the next, you know, it girl, right?
Exploited. Yeah.
Exploited. You know, I don't know to be honest with you, I don't know if there's one thing you as a person, like there's one person about me, about somebody deciding to being in the public eye, right? And putting their opinions out there. And then there's a whole other level with your children, a
Yeah.
whole other layer of having your children out there, or wanting to have your children to be exposed to the public eye like that. I
Yeah, I've
personally,
been
now I'm
very
not
careful
judging
with
it.
my kids.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not even
personally,
famous. I've,
yeah,
I know how dark and scary people are.
yeah,
And other kids too, how they are on social media and what you really do to your kid's brain by having them on social media that young, and the things that people say to them and stuff. It's not the same as like when you were bullied back in the day, right? Like
hmm,
you're bullied for a little bit and they go on, you go on, you know. I don't know.
yeah,
I definitely don't feel it's the same. It's messed with the like prefrontal cortex of the kids' brains and stuff like that with social media. And my kids, they don't have social media. My daughter does now, but she doesn't even care about it. She doesn't, I mean, she's got Instagram. That's what she's got. And then she watches YouTube. She's rarely on Instagram ever. She could give two shits. She's not on TikTok. She just watches shorts that come up on YouTube, and she could care less. Like she has no interest in wanting to be on social media.
sure. And really, that's just the way to be. But again, to your point, like I would not, I would not willingly expose my kids to that level of publicity.
And it's hard to go back from.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would not. I would blur out their faces, right? I mean, look what Michael Jackson did to just
With
look at Michael
blanket,
Jackson and
yeah,
with all his kids, to the extent they went to have normal play dates. Now, with all the Kardashian kids, like now that their faces are everywhere, can they have normal play dates? You know what I mean? With people like rushing them,
yeah,
with Michael Jackson, I will say this, like I know he has his level of controversies, but he did do everything possible to keep
yeah,
his kids anonymous, and that so people wouldn't react to them when they see him. Right now, we know all of these kids' faces, right?
yeah,
From like Rain, Disick, and the little ones, and all of them. Like, where is there certain like level of privacy? I think there has to be a certain level of respect with
yeah.
children that,
Oh, sure.
yeah, that I think that some people don't necessarily have. But then again, when you start saying things like that, they're like, "Oh, you're judging them." I'm not judging them. And granted, it's not my child. You can raise your
Yeah,
child however you want, but don't, when something bad happens or that child acts crazy and it impacts other people. And I mean, obviously, I don't mean crazy like in the sense that they're mentally. I'm just
yeah,
acting
yeah.
like awry. I just have to clarify that. Maybe I should use a different word because I've used it a
Acting
couple of
out.
times. Acting out. There you go. Acting out, you know, and become society's problem, right? Because at the end of the day, these kids act out, and
Yeah,
it impacts society's problem because you introduced them to something that they weren't ready to be introduced from. I think fame is hard enough for people who are full blown adults to deal with, and then
right.
not now putting it in front of children.
Well, a
It's
lot of these
totally
child
different.
stars end up doing hardcore drugs, either for a
Yeah,
part of time or for a long time, And I mean, look at people like Macaulay Culkin, the Olsen twins.
for sure.
List goes on from those Disney stars
Selena
and stuff like that.
Gomez,
Yeah, Selena Gomez. I
Demi
mean,
Lovato,
yeah,
I mean, all
Raven
of
Simone.
Britney Spears.
Yep, yep.
I
I
mean, all of
mean,
those kids who had this whole it's unfortunate that they've all had their Drew Barry had to have their time in rehab at a very
yep,
young age. Let me tell you something. I don't adhere. I personally don't think children should be in Hollywood. I don't think they should be in part of it. I wouldn't, if I had children, I wouldn't allow them to be a part of it. I don't care if the
Yeah.
kid is a wonderful actor and a singer and has all the talent in the world. For me, the money is not worth it.
I don't know. I think I feel kind of on that one. If the child is telling me that that is their dream to be an actor, I think that's one thing. But for me to go, you know what, my kid looks cute, I'm going to make them be an actor, I don't think that's fair to them unless that's something that they had already made the decision that that is what they want to be grown up, you
Mm.
know? Like,
Yeah, I'm on the opposite end. I would be like, you want to be an actor? Wait till you're 18. I'll support you in everything. But now I want you to be a normal kid and worry about normal kid stuff, not about making enough money to support your house or buy me. You know what I'm saying? Like
oh yeah,
because
definitely not for that reason at all. Like,
yeah, because it ends up being like, I mean, like Macaulay Culkin and the problem that I don't think it was Macaulay. It might have been somebody else. Sorry, misspoke. But that had problem with their parents because they're buying their parents all these things, right? And all this. And it almost seems like they're selling their kid.
yeah, yeah. There are quite a few parents on TikTok that are doing some very questionable videos with their kids that they're kind of okay, like, oh, what's wrong with it? It's just a kid dressing up. But like at the same time, with you knowing who all is on TikTok, right? Like all these dark creeps and stuff like that, and you're putting your kid out there in these little outfits and making them all cute. Because if you go to the comments, it's nothing but creeps. Like it's not kids following these accounts, it's creeps. And
I wouldn't
like
put
the
my kid out
parents
there.
know, and they have them on these like Patreon and some of the paid sites where you go and you get a membership to see other content that's maybe not necessarily their kid naked, but it's still very highly inappropriate, like feet pics of their child and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's weird. And I don't, parents that are doing that with their kids, they're, sounds like they're willing to
There's
do some other stuff to their
they're
kids.
sick.
And I don't know if they should have their kids.
There's people that are willing to sell their kids as horrible, as
Yeah,
ugly,
yeah,
as terrible as that is. There is people that are that evil, twisted, and dark.
yeah,
And it's unfortunate that we live in a world like that. Very
yeah.
unfortunate. And
Lots of
I
it
mean,
too.
yeah, yeah, and it's questionable. And to your point, they why are you doing this? Is it you're willing to do anything for a dollar? And I think where you said something about capitalism out of control, right? That where that we talked about capitalism, but that it's that capitalism can be a very good thing, but
Yeah.
when you're willing to hurt other people,
Exploit, yeah, exploit other people for a
exploit
dollar.
people for a dollar, that's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where we are right now because people are being exploited in mass. I mean, to sit there and say that we don't have modern day slavery and everybody is involved now is an understatement.
Well, didn't they catch these folks that they had these people that were undocumented and they were using them for like labor and they had that like they couldn't leave and they finally got yeah.
Where was
Yeah,
it?
it happened. It was here in the US. I'm trying to figure out what state it was. And they finally caught them and they were like these people that they would have working, right? And they were not allowed to leave or anything. Basically just like free labor.
Oh,
And
yeah,
they ended
yeah.
up
Well, that's one thing, right? Like that kind of slavery, but also, I mean, just modern day slavery, like people working at Amazon, for instance, who are making literally shit and they're having to pee in bottles because they can't get a break, like stuff like that, you know? Because capitalism is what it is right now.
I
Not that we want to
wonder.
flip capitalism. It's just we need to do it a little better. We need to respect people. We need to pay people a living wage. We're still paying CNAs like $9 an hour when I made that as a CNA in 2003.
Oh wow.
When my rent for a 2-bedroom apartment that was a pretty good size was like $536 a month. Now that
Mhm.
apartment is like $1,700 a month, and you're still as a CNA making $9 an hour. It's actually, I think some CNAs make 8. So it's like, it's crazy. And then they tell
That's
people pull
insane.
yourself up by your bootstraps.
It's going to be difficult for them to your point, it's difficult for somebody that, and again, it's like who's going to give them, who's going to give them loans for their business, who's going to do, like, it's all about, and then we were talking about that proximity to wealth, right? Like, if you have proximity to people who have money that are willing to invest with you, you can, but if you don't,
Yeah.
you're stuck. You're stuck.
Yeah.
Very, very sad. Very sad. I don't know. Let's end on a happy note because it's pretty depressing. Down, down,
Well,
down, Debbie
I was gonna
Downer.
go back to you had talked about when we were talking about the attention from your parents and them acting out because, and you talked about being at home, right? When you threw your mom being home and you always knew your mom was going to be home when you got home. I
Yeah.
can definitely tell with my kids and their behavior how different it is from working outside the home than it is inside the home and actually having
Mm-hmm.
them here and me being here. Um, my youngest, who he'll be 15 in September, whose special needs has struggled in his classes. Like right before COVID happened, he was in a special school for kids with behavioral issues because he
Mm-hmm.
was incredibly violent. Um, for many reasons, he lacked being able to communicate the way he needs because he's largely deaf. He didn't know sign language because he doesn't want to learn it. And so there was a huge communication issue. But also, I worked a lot. I worked outside the home. So he has, been at daycare or he would stay with my mom and stuff like that. And I love to work. Like I've always loved to work. And so I would work as much as I possibly could because also things are expensive. Kids are expensive.
Yeah, for sure. Kids are expensive.
But just being able, because when COVID happened, they were home basically for a year and a half of school. And then this last year, I decided, because my daughter graduated in December, my oldest graduated last year, last school year, not this last one, but the one before that. And so, I mean, I was like, I'm just going to take him out and homeschool because shit was getting crazy anyway. Kids were starting to
Yeah.
fight too much in the schools and COVID and just all the things, right? All the stuff they're teaching, the other kids that they're around, especially right now, like I don't know what's up with the kids these days, but some of the kids that live out here where we live, I've seen these little girls literally trying to smash rabbits with rocks. Yeah. And so I don't want my kids around those type of kids
No.
at all. And those
No.
kids are going to school with my kid because
Yeah.
they live in our complex. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, nope. And so just him being home the past couple years, he was doing online virtual, but now being homeschooled, he gets to learn casually whenever about whatever we want to learn about that day, especially like if he has something that he brings up. Like the other day, he was talking about toads, and so we learned about toads and how toads are different than toadstool or what is it, tadpoles and stuff like that. And then, germs, learn about germs whenever we felt like learning about germs because it came up. Or he learned about blood work and what blood work is and why he needs to take iron. So it's like life learning when it happens. And his behavior is a complete 180. He was doing really well. He was going to be transferred into the regular school right before COVID
Mm-hmm.
happened, but he was still having some issues with aggression. But now, I mean, he's matured way better, way faster than he was at public school. And yeah, I mean, just completely different. So it makes a huge difference when your child actually gets to be around you a lot more for a large part of the day, and you get to casually talk to them, or and not everybody gets to do that. And that's unfortunate that we don't have a system set up that supports especially single parents with special needs kids, and just other services that allow parents to really take care of their kids, because kids are the society of the future.
For sure.
And
Agreed.
if we're not able to raise kids who are kind to each other, who trust people but also have restraint and can accept responsibility, we're going to have a very, very hard, crazy society in the future.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's going to be insane. Because you're right. Like it just, yeah. Yeah.
All the mass shootings that happen from kids these days, kids getting hold of their parents' guns and all of that,
And
right? I don't want to go down that road, but
yeah.
just
Yeah. But I see what
it
you're saying.
makes a
I see where
huge
you're going.
difference. Time and
Oh,
giving your kids that actual time that they want and need.
spending time with their kids.
Huge. Yeah.
For sure. That's a good note to stop on, Michelle. Spending time with your kids. Spend time with your children. Talk to them. Valuable
Yeah.
kid time.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't know, Michelle. I think it's about that time.
All right. Well, click the subscribe button or follow, and that way you'll always know whenever our next podcast drops. Have a good day.